Hello, hello, hello. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Doc is In, episode 14. Today's video is going to focus on healthy relationships. Again, we're in our love cycle series. So now that you've fallen in love with you, let's talk about falling in love with someone else. So today's video, again, is going to focus on healthy relationships. And although we're kind of talking about romantic relationships, this also can be applied to any relationship. Family, friends, you name it. This can be applied. The first thing I want to talk about is healthy boundaries. I touched on it a little bit in the last video when we were talking about self-care. And I want to touch on it in this video in depth because healthy boundaries are the key to healthy relationships. If you're a person who has no boundaries, then you can get run over really, really easily. As I think about what healthy boundaries look like, oftentimes that's being able to say no. As I mentioned in the last video, being able to say no and mean it. When your no is no, that's it, and nobody gets the right to tell you that you can't say no. Taking care of yourself, of course. Behaving the way that you want to behave. So the biggest thing is authenticity. So when we're going to be talking about healthy boundaries, we're talking about authenticity. You being able to express your emotions, have difficult conversations, be able to go after your goals, be treated as an equal, be treated respectfully. You're only responsible for your happiness. In a healthy relationship, I can't make you happy. That's something that you have to do. Honestly, when I hear couples say that, it kind of makes me sick to my stomach because I feel like something's about to go awry. When I hear people say, oh, he makes me so happy, she makes me so happy, or the one that I really can't stand is he or she completes me. No, you should be a complete person before you get into a relationship. I'm sorry, there's no better half because you're not half a person. You are a whole person. They are a whole person. And if somebody isn't fully in, I always use that image of the two interlocked rings that people use for marriage. If somebody's not a whole person, then that means there's a gap somewhere, which allows that ring to slip off. So just remember that. Also, it's about knowing your feelings and knowing who you are and what you believe and what you like and not being afraid to say that. One of the big questions that I get a lot of times is, what do boundaries look like in terms of what are they? So you could have physical boundaries. Think of a fence. A fence, 4 walls, maybe your boundary line of your property. Things like, hey, don't come past here because this is me past here. But a lot of things are intangible, spiritual boundaries, but they're no less real than something physical like a fence. Personally, if you're a person of faith, your boundary may be, hey, you're not gonna, disrespect my faith. And that's whatever faith you may be of. Things like that. Boundaries are what define us as people, and it says where you end and where someone else begins. It's what you own, what you have responsibility for. We are responsible to someone possibly, but we are responsible for ourselves. One of the things that I like to say about family is, family comes with a responsibility. We are responsible to our families, but by that same token, they are responsible for us as well, The easiest way to think of it is boundaries are what keep good things in and keep bad things out. Why do you put up a fence? Because you want to protect your property, right? So it's that same concept of when we're talking about our emotional boundaries, our spiritual and physical boundaries, all of that ties in. So what does this have to do with healthy relationships? I'm so happy you asked. You guys know exactly when to ask the right questions. So if you don't have healthy boundaries, how can you have a healthy relationship? Speaking from personal experience, I have not always had the best boundaries, and I have not always been the best when it came to self-esteem. So as a result, I had poor boundaries, which allowed really bad patterns to emerge in relationships. So, for example, one of the things you're going to want to think of when you're thinking of healthy versus unhealthy relationships, healthy relationships are about trust. There's trust. So I'm not going to feel like I have to check your phone. I'm not going to feel like I have to know where you are every minute of every day because I trust you. That's healthy. Whenever your relationship is fueling fear of any kind within you, that's a sign that your relationship may not be healthy. If I'm fearful of, oh, are you doing the right thing? If I'm fearful of, oh, are you happy? If I'm fearful of all of these things, that's unhealthy because, again, I can only be responsible for me. I can't be responsible for you and me. Like, I may have an obligation to you, but I can't be fully responsible for another adult. If that's the case, then I just became a parent. So, in a lot of unhealthy relationships, what you'll notice is there's two adults, but there's almost a parent child dynamic. Somebody is literally taking care of someone else hand and foot. One of my favorite shows is My 600-Pound Life for obvious reasons that I'll go into in other videos. But My 600-Pound Life is an amazing show because it shows how unhealthy relationship dynamics can be. You have somebody who's dying from overeating, and you have someone else who, out of love, is bringing them food and bringing them things that they're not supposed to have. So I always appreciate when Dr. Now says things like, okay, so you're an enabler. Okay, so you're codependent, because that's oftentimes what it is. I myself have dealt with codependency issues. You're doing something, you're doing the wrong thing, but you're doing it for the right reason. You're enabling someone to continue a negative pattern of behavior because in your mind, that is how you're showing them that you love them. It's like, I'll take care of everything. I will work, I will come home and cook and take care of the house and pay all the bills. I'll do all of this because this is how I show you that I love you and I should want to do all these things. But at the same time, the other person is not appreciative of it. They overlook what you do because it's become so normal. That's so unhealthy. Please, 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 please keep an eye out for those things. Healthy relationships are supportive. They're not controlling. If you're finding that if you say you want to go out with friends, you're being guilted out of it, you're constantly being accused of things that you didn't do, you're literally, you're being controlled in one way or another. Now, most times people think, okay, I'm being controlled, and the only thing they can think of is physical abuse. It's not always physical abuse. There are people who are manipulative and they can emotionally control situations. You can be in a house living with an emotion terrorist. If you're with someone who always needs the attention to be on them and who will readily say things like, well, this relationship isn't working, maybe I should just leave, but they're saying that for the purpose of having you beg them to stay, they are an emotion terrorist. That relationship is unhealthy. You need to make changes, okay? A real healthy relationship will accept boundaries. So if you say, babe, I don't feel comfortable going to this, or I just don't want to go, they're not going to fight you to make you go. They will understand, okay? A real relationship is not afraid of conflict. For so long, I touted the fact that my partner and I didn't argue. And I was like, we never argue. We never have a fight. We've been together 3 or 4 years. We've never argued. That, in hindsight, is actually a sign of something very unhealthy. Because if you have two grown people with their own mind and they never disagree, someone is lying. There is a lie being told, okay? Someone's lying. It's not feasible. My best of friends and I disagree. But the thing about it is, a healthy relationship can have conflict that is constructive. So maybe we disagree and maybe we argue, but at the end of that argument, we've come to a resolution. Unhealthy conflict is when you're arguing just to argue. When you're arguing and like the response becomes your mama, unhealthy. Flag on the play. The game is over. The end. Because what we're doing now is we're not even speaking to something that is fixable. Like your mama is your mama. The end. Okay. I remember in couples counseling, I had a couple who did that. They would start out having a conversation that was productive, and it would degenerate into you did, you said, your mama, you this, that, or the third. And it's like at that point, I would always stop them because what are we doing right now? When your constructive argument becomes a third grade bickering session, that's not healthy. So I want you to take away that arguing is okay as long as it's constructive. Um, I think whenever your relationship tries to, um, it builds you up. When you think about the fact that the person that you're with and you're like, wow, I can see where I'm better for them being in my life, that's a plus. But the hitch is, are you better right now for them being in your life? Don't if the only time you can think of something positive about your relationship is something that has previously happened, but you can't think of anything in the present. I always think of that Janet Jackson song when they're like, "Yeah, he's good. He was good to you, but what has he done for you lately?" That kind of concept. I mean, if you can't think of anything that's come of your relationship in the recent that has been positive, it's time to rethink some things in all honesty. Um, like if your relationship feels always like it's it's almost like bribery, like when they do something nice and your first thought is, oh crap, what do you want? Like, yeah, something's up. So just saying. So what does a healthy relationship look like? There's communication. It's not yelling always. Please, guys, calmly talking to one another, appreciating one another for what you are and for what you aren't. Positive feedback. Um, Let me say this. One thing that I would do all the time, and I think at the time, my ex didn't really get it, was when things were done. For example, groceries were gotten, dishes were washed. I'd say thank you. It's such a small thing. To tell someone thank you for doing something that they really didn't have to do, but they did, that's a small thing, but it can make a big difference. And I'm going to say that to everybody out there. If your spouse does things for you, it doesn't matter if they've always done it. Thank them for what they've done. Show them appreciation because when someone feels appreciated, it makes a world of difference. When you come home to a cooked dinner every day, thank you. That's a thank you type situation. Because you know what? When that food starts to be seasoned with obligation and not love, you'll know the difference. When you used to come home to steak and potatoes and now you coming home to beanie weenies, that's obligation on the beanie weenies. Just saying. Um, Asking for what you need. I'm going to post some things up, some visuals for you. The power and control wheels are really great. They're from the Duluth Project. And the power and control wheel is talking about negative things in relationships, intimidation, emotional abuse, allowing yourself to be isolated. Anytime that you find yourself making excuses for someone, or they are always making excuses and minimizing their own issues, if you didn't know, that's called projection. And well, minimizing is minimizing, but when, like, for example, you're always being blamed for something like gaslighting, um, that is definitely a power trip. When people use children, and I find that women do this more than men, where it's like, oh, I'll leave and I'll take the kids and you'll never see them again. Not cool. Not cool at all. Because you should never use your kids as a means to get what you want. That sucks. That's just like, you are literally the worst kind of person for doing that. And I'll say it, and I don't care how you feel about it. Using privilege, like, when you get a lot of guys who do this. Well, I'm the head of the house, or I pay for the house. That kind of stuff, again, not cool. Economic abuse, anytime that someone is financially dependent on another and that person who brings home the money throws that in their face, not cool. Coercion, threatening to, report something or post a lot. You get this a lot now with like revenge porn, where people are like posting old nudes and such. Like, man, like, why would you do that to someone? Like, people have to go to work and see coworkers, and like that's not okay. Um, the opposite of that would be the equality wheel, which is talking about all the positive things you want in relationships: non-threatening behavior, negotiation, sharing responsibility. For parents, is being responsible parents. Like, one person should not have to bear all of the aspects of raising the child. Like, if you don't know what size your child wears and clothes, come on now, you got to do better than you doing. Plus, I'm not a fan of negligent fathers, but that's for a different video. Um, Honesty, accountability, trust and support, respect, man, like basic stuff. Um, I wish for all of you that you would be in healthy relationships, but sometimes you have to really take a hard look at the situation you're in to determine whether or not it's worth staying in. It's better to be healthy alone than to be with someone else who makes you feel bad and makes you feel unhealthy. And we're going to go into that a little bit more in the next episode when we're talking about learning to let go of negative relationships. For those of you who are in happy relationships and healthy relationships, appreciate your partner, love them, show them that you care this week. It could be something small. Go back to those things that you used to do. Don't let today's routine make you forget all the love that you shared. For all of those folks out there celebrating anniversaries, oh my gosh, congratulations to you. It's hard to find somebody that you want to spend 5 days with, let alone 50 years. So God bless you guys, and God keep you. My prayer would be that you would always be in love and that your love would constantly grow. Um, I love you all. Love yourselves today. Love somebody else. I promise you we'll all be better for it.